Good morning to all the young people watching and all of you who are young at heart. Did you know that this year is the 100th anniversary of women being able to vote in this country? That's a big deal because voting gives us power in our country. It's a way that we can make choices about who are our leaders and what decisions they make, what laws they make that impact things like our schools and where roads are going to be built and who can afford health care. So it's really unfair that 100 years ago, women were not allowed to vote, to have a say. And then it was only mostly white men who were even allowed to vote. So 100 years seems like a really long time, and it is pretty long. But do you know how long those women and people fighting for women's right to vote worked before they got that? Another 100 years. Wow, more than people's lifetimes. Generation after generation were working for the right for women to vote. They didn't give up. They kept trying and trying, no matter how many times they were ignored or told no, or called mean names or treated poorly. They didn't give up, and they got their right to vote. And people today are still working to make sure even more people have the right to vote, because there are still places where things are unfair in our system, in our culture. Now, why am I talking about voting? Well, in our Bible story today, we hear about another very determined woman. She wasn't working for the right to vote, but she was speaking up because she needed help to heal her daughter. In Jesus' time in the Bible, things were different in their culture than they are today. And women were not treated very great in that time. They didn't have a lot of power. They certainly couldn't vote, and they didn't even have a lot of say in other things that happened in their lives. And unfortunately, as far too often happens still today, people were treated differently and poorly, sometimes based on their culture or race. Well, in today's Bible story, Jesus travels to an area that has a different culture than the areas he's been teaching, which were filled with Jewish people, where he was teaching his good news. When he got there, a Canaanite woman who was from a different culture came up to him and shouted to him, asking for help to heal her daughter. Now, this woman had heard that Jesus was a special healer and helper, and she believed that he could help her. The thing is, when she asked Jesus for help, he did something really unexpected. At first, he ignored her. And when she kept asking and kept asking, he actually put her down and pointed out that she was different and that he wasn't there to teach her. Wow, that does not sound like the Jesus of inclusive love we talk so much about, who includes everyone and shows how big God's love is. But that woman didn't give up. She asked Jesus again and again, and she helped to show Jesus how big God's love could be, should be, and was. And after she kept trying, Jesus realized she was right. And Jesus changed what he was saying and doing. And he did help the woman, and he did heal her daughter. And God's love did grow to include even more. This is a confusing story for kids and adults. Jesus is not acting in the way we normally expect. We're used to him turning things upside down, but usually he's on the side saying, yes, let's include everyone. And in this story, it took Jesus a little bit of time to come to that place. But I think there are things we can learn from this story. One, we can learn a lot from that woman. She never gave up. She had hope and faith that Jesus could help her, and she kept trying. And I think we can do that too when we're standing up for things we know are right and we believe in. And the second thing is we can learn to be more like Jesus. And in this story, to be like Jesus means to be open to learning from someone's perspective that's different than us, and be open to seeing where, wow, maybe our love hasn't been as inclusive and as big as maybe it should be. So I hope as you go forward in your life, standing up for people, whether it's the right for people to vote, or whether it's for Black lives to be treated as they ought to be treated, with love and respect, I hope that you will remember to be like the woman who was determined, and to be like Jesus, who even changed his own heart to make it full with even more of God's love. Let's share a prayer together. Dear God of our growing hearts, be with us as we stand up for women's rights, civil rights, immigrant rights, and for people to love who they want, and for people to love big and wide. It doesn't leave anybody out. Thank you for showing us that we can all find ways to grow and open our own hearts a little more to one another. Amen. Peace be with you.